really sincerely upset that, it was costing him money to, run for be president because he didn't want to take donations. So he self-funded as much as he could. And, he was really complaining how much money it had ended up costing him. But you know what? His net worth has dropped over $1 billion since he's been president.
Oh, my.
Now he's really dropped on the list of the billionaires.
Wow.
Yeah, his net worth now is, I think, $3 billion.
Think he'll be able to pay his rent next week?
Well, I don't know. I think, aren't we paying for his going golfing and everything else?
I think something like that. Goodness God. Dang, gone. Couldn't imagine that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean, anything over a $20 bill, I kind of get excited about.
I'm about ready to mount it on the wall, but I can't afford to. I got to spend it.
So, what have you been up to lately, my friend?
Oh, you know what I do. I help people with paranormal problems. It's an everyday battle. Somewhere, somebody needs something, some kind of help, information, or boots on the ground, whatever I can do to help them. It's nonstop. I swear it's like an epidemic out there.
Oh, yeah.
There's never see the light at the end of the tunnel of that, because there's always somebody messing with something that draws attention, brings it in, or somebody's doing things, or somebody's not protecting themselves, or you've got young, inexperienced people, thinking, oh, I want to get out there and investigate and do this and that, and they don't know all the variables that go into it of how to protect yourself, what to watch out for. Next thing you know, they've got attachments, or they brought something home, or people's messing around with stuff they shouldn't mess around with, and the list goes on and on.
Oh, yeah. I had a young man here a few days ago. Matter of fact, I think it was after you were on the last time. He was talking about he wants to get in ghost hunting. What type of equipment? And you know what? I sent him an email back nicely. I said, hey, find yourself a ghost hunting group in your area. Ask them nicely if you can tag along. And if they don't let you, find another group, because there's a lot of groups out there. But I said the first thing you don't want to do is go out ghost hunting by yourself.
No, I strongly suggest do not do that. You're exactly right. That is the exact same advice. I have dozens of people every week that ask me that, and I tell them the same thing. Try to, in your area, try to find somebody, tag along. Don't say a word. Don't interfere. Just tell them, look, you just be like back in the corner, taking it. You need to take in all the knowledge you can. Read all you can read on it. Even my guest the other night, Linda Carino, mentioned it, and she's been in this for 35 years. Read all you can. Do like that. Find somebody that you can go with and investigate, watch, take in all the knowledge you can take in. Even on TV, watch the good and the bad, and learn all you can. Take in all you can. And there's nothing better than experienced boots on the ground. But don't do it by yourself, and find somebody. Like you just said, I strongly agree with you on that. That will let you tag along or whatever. You can't buy or experience, man. But you can't just go out there and jump into the deep end of the pool either. You gotta do the work. You gotta read up on it and talk to the right people, and just keep talking and reading. And that's strong advice I can give.
Well, it's not just that. Back years ago when I was managing a business in Tacoma, which the business building was haunted, but I one point went upstairs where the rooms were, but they weren't there anymore. They were tore out. But the flooring was still there, and you're talking about a building that was built in the 1870s. The upstairs probably hasn't been used since probably the 40s or 50s. That's the bottom two floors were used, but not the upper couple stories that was still there. And,
right.
One day I was up there, just because I, like photography, and I could see where the old window sills were, they were bricked up, and you could see on the floor where the walls were, because it left the marks on the flooring. And it was kind of eerie in there, And I was walking around. Now, this is 3 stories up. I was at 3 stories up, and I'm a big guy. I think I'm bigger now, but I think at that time I was like 230 pounds. So I'm walking around up there with my camera, not really paying attention. Now, the owners told me be very careful when you walk on those floors. Walk down the center, don't kind of walk off the sides. Well, I kind of walked off to the side, and you know what? I fell through. I didn't fall all the way through, but I fell up to like my armpits. And, and the way it was, the main part of the store, you could look at the ceiling, and it was 3 stories up. And people saw me hanging, my legs hanging and stuff. They had to get the paramedics. The Tacoma Fire Department came, and they rescued me. I probably would have died, 3-story drop on, because the actual sales floor, it had a thin carpet, and underneath that was a cement floor. So that would have been one hell of a drop.
Oh, yeah. That you just gave me a little case of deja vu, because I've had something similar to that happen to me. Back in 86 or 87, I was up in upper state New York, and I was with some friends, and I was working this job. We was tearing down and demolition of an old steel mill up in Star Lake, New York. And I was, like you said, it was an old steel mill. It's been defunct for probably 20, 30 years. And we're cutting it up from the top down, and I'm in the top thing, and we worked there every day. And then on the weekends, I would do my investigating. So, so me and my friend went there, and I'm investigating, and it's dark, and it's this place has been defunct for 30 years. There was a history of people dying there and all kinds of stuff. So, it was right up my alley. I'm working there, and I figured, do a little investigating. So I'm up there investigating. Next thing I know, it was like a steel grate, and there was something over a hole, and didn't see it, and it's dark. And when I walked, it was like cardboard over this hole, and I went right through, and I literally put I was a lot stronger then, but I mean I'm pretty strong now. But my arms caught it, and about ripped my arms off, caught my body weight. And I'm telling you what, if I would have fell through, it was probably a good 30, 40 feet, like you're speaking, of all jagged metal down there. And on top of that, there was some evil spirits around there for sure. And here I am hanging, and I'm like, I'm just waiting for an evil spirit to put a boot on my head and push me on down through the hole, And it was like, I was in a heck of a predicament. My buddy helped me up through there, but man, you just give me a case of deja vu on that one. Whew.
Well, what I'm basically trying to tell people, you don't know when you start going into these old buildings.
Yeah.
And if you're by yourself and you don't tell anybody where you're going, I mean, how long maybe before somebody else walks in that building, that they don't want to see a corpse laying there. I mean, so many different things can happen. Walls can cave in. You fall through the floor. Things can fall on you, the ceiling, you name it. You got to be careful when you go into these old buildings.
You are so right. That's another thing I try to educate people when that's trying to get into this business. There's a lot more variables and ramifications to these events, the dangers of investigating. One of them is these buildings, the floors you could fall through, like I did, or insects. You could bring home cockroaches, bed bugs. I know it sounds great, but it's true. All kind of dangers that you're talking about in there. God knows there's raccoons up in there, and they're good. They're known for being rabid. You got to be careful about all kind of different things. Got to be on your toes. It's not just there's an old building out in the country. Let's just get out and jump out and go and run through it. You're liable to fall through and get hurt. And even on my case, that was a Friday. That was a Friday after work, so everybody was gone for the weekend. If something would have happened and I was by myself, falling 30, 40 feet, who knows? I'd have been there till Monday morning. Well, if you break your back or something, what's the odds? I've probably been dead,
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just like people go out hiking, right? And they go on a trail that maybe is not used that often. So maybe in the course of a week, 1 or 2 people might walk on that trail, or maybe not at all. And you're out there, and what happens if you break your leg? You're going to die. Well, it's the same thing. You go into a building that you're not sure of. You want to, this is the liability, even for whoever owns that building. I mean, this, all that. You want to make sure, one, you have permission to go in that building.
Yes.
And if you're brave enough to go in by yourself, at least have the owner of the building or one of his representatives with you, at least to show you, what and what is not safe. But, That's the problem. A lot of people, I hate to say it, they go in ghost huntings and they go into like old abandoned houses or they go into old buildings and stuff without permission. And, then that's when they risk their lives.
They do, because, a lot of them old buildings been sitting around, and a lot of them's infested with termites, too. They've been chewing on it for 10, 20 years, and they're just like paper walls, the wood or the floors. And, there's a lot of potential for accidents, for sure, just on that end of it. So, I always try to tell them that part of it, too.
Well,
sure.
Can you just imagine me, a big guy falling through the floor, right, in a retail, environment, when the store probably had about 10, 15, 20 customers in there, and they see somebody's legs, hanging from the ceiling, which is 3 stories up, because it was a vaulted ceiling. I didn't have to call the police or anything. They couldn't hear me from that, where I was at, but they could certainly see my feet going every which way. And I was scared because the flooring was so rotted. I was waiting for it just to let me, drop through. Thank God I didn't.
Yeah, me too. The hole I fell through it wasn't much wider than me. So it wasn't like I had room to catch myself. But I'm going to tell you, there's no feeling in the world like you're walking along in pitch dark, probably a total of 100 to 120 feet in the air, and all of a sudden the bottom drops out of you. Let me tell you, that feeling, that millionth of a second lasts a lifetime, and that feeling is, there's not words to describe that. Let me tell you, and I just thank God the hole wasn't more than about 24 inches wide, or it'd been over for sure.
Well, it's really funny. People talk about, out-of-body experiences and stuff like that. I have only been in one car accident in my life. And that, I was on a back road doing the speed limit, which was 50-some miles an hour. I just bought this vehicle. It was a van. I just bought it from the car dealership, and I was going to go home and put the insurance on it. I didn't even make it home. I was on this side road, right? And some guy, a salesman, matter of fact, he must not have been paying attention, probably a cell phone or whatever, he hit me head on, and he admitted he was doing 60. Well, I tell you, what happened is my seat broke off in the van. It was bolted to the floor, but it tore off, right? I was buckled in, with my seatbelt on the seat, and I saw myself kind of like in real slow motion flying in the air to the back of the van. I watched, stuff go flying, it breaking up inside the van. I even watched the whole front where the motor was coming towards me as I was flying in the back.
Oh, my goodness.
And, and then, the car or the van came to a stop. And, it seemed like it took minutes to happen, which it was probably less than a second for all that.
Yeah, yep.
And I get out of somehow I managed to get out of the van, and I'm standing there, and this Washington State Patrol come, because it was a major accident, I'm standing there, I'm feeling normal. I'm looking at the van. It's, now it was one of the extended vans. Now it was a shorty van. And the car had hit me. His front end was like almost in the rear seat. He was lucky to be alive.
Jeez,
and
no kidding.
I was standing there, and the police said, "Hey, you better sit down, lay down." I said, "I'm feeling fine." And then the next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital, and what I'm saying is like time stands still, and it
yes.
Just like when I fell through the flooring up in that building, it was like I dropped through. It was like slow motion.
I so can relate to that. Oh, my God. I got to tell you, I had an out-of-body experience. Back in the early to mid-'90s, I was living on the East Coast, and me and my friend, we used to go to the Lincoln Dog Track every day, about 5 days a week.
Okay, were you betting money on the... Okay, you just admitted it.
Yeah, I was a better. But I was basically a handicapper. I would stand in the same spot and give out handicap, and I would, take my little fee, but I'd stay in the same spot every day because that's how everybody knew where to find me. And if I moved, they'd go to my competition, right? Now, I did this for about 4.5